Okay, good afternoon and a very, very warm welcome to this session. A very, very interesting topic, and I'm really fortunate to have some of the best brains from the industry sitting on the panel. That makes my job easy, I guess. um, Before we get into discussion, I want to take 2 minutes to set the context, right? As we know, we are a country of DPIs. There are wonderful DPIs which India has produced, which are being replicated across the world. And I must say with a lot of pride that there is a very, very important initiative from the government to build DPI in agriculture, right? In the last few years, I'm sure you must have heard about AgriTech. It's one of the most, I would say one of the most ambitious and one of the most challenging stack that India is building, capturing the farm ID, the farmer ID, and the crop ID. And once we build it, I can tell you this can really open up opportunity for multiple use cases, right? And definitely financing is going to be one key use case. We all know the challenges which farmer faces when get finance. He has to rely on a lot of informal lending sources, and the cost of capital is very high. And a lot of our smallholder farmers are kind of finding it difficult to get the institutional credit. Hopefully with some of these data stacks, digital public goods coming in, the transactional cost of giving loan, of underwriting loan, of recovering loan can go down substantially and make it really easy and seamless for farmers to avail loans. So I think that is clearly one big use case. Of course, there are other use cases in terms of building farmer access to markets, inputs, insurance, mechanization, and things like that. But clearly lending is going to be one of the key use cases. So with that, I'll pause here, and first of all, we would like to hear from Mr. Rawat, DMD of NABARD, on his view on some of these digital public goods and how they want to transform the agricultural lending space. So over to you, Mr. Rawat.
Thank you. Good afternoon to all. I think before I talk about that, I'll just like to give a brief about what's the entire landscape of farmer financing right now in the country. So if you look at the 2011 census, total cultivators in the country are around 14 crore. And if you see the latest data related to PM Kisan Samman Nidhi, the farmers who are registered there, it's around 9 crore. And as on date, the operative KCC, which is a tool for financing agri credit to the farmers, it's around 7.75 or 7.85 crore. So that's the broad picture in terms of the overall status of how many cultivators and how many are covered through our formal banking system. Now, if you see last year, as on March 24, total agri loan, includes term loan as well as the short-term production loan. So it's around 25.5 lakh crore. And out of that, around 60% is short-term and 40% is long-term. So now the major issue is that 9 crore farmers, those who are registered in the PM Kisan portal, and 7.75 crore, those who have the operative KCC. So there's a gap of around 1.25 crore. That is one gap. And second, if you see the entire 14 crore farmers, cultivators who are registered as per 2011 census, and 7.7. So there's a gap of around 6 crore farmers. Those who are not yet connected with the formal banking system. And broadly speaking, they are not getting the various Government of India scheme related to interest subvention and prompt repayment. So that's the broader picture. Now this gap of 1.25 crore, so the PM Kisan vis-a-vis KCC, and 6 crores cultivators vis-a-vis KCC. So why this gap is there? And what are the challenges there? So that is what we need to understand. So that 1.25 crore, basically we can say PM Kisan, once they are registered in the PM Kisan portal, they have the identity, verified identity. And then the state governments have identified them as a farmer. So that this gap of 1.25, this gap exists because I think there are issues related to NPAs, and there are issues related to some of the farmers, those who are not willing, but it will be a very small number, but there are, if you talk to the villagers in the rural area, then there are many those who say that I don't want to go to a bank. I have sufficient to meet my requirements, or he has some other alternate source, so he doesn't want to go to a bank. So that is one chunk. So maybe 18-20%, broadly speaking, the NPAs, those who have defaulted to the banks, so they are not getting again. Remaining, I think government is taking enough steps, initiatives from government side, lot of, campaigns. Banks are taking a lot of initiatives. RBI is taking a lot of initiatives. There have been initiatives related to how we can fast track the entire sanction process, how we can fast track the entire, simplify the documentation process. So that is leading to additionality of coverage of farmers. So I think this one out of 1.25, we will leave aside the NPAs or those who are not willing. So that I think will be covered very soon through the banking system. So that would not be a challenge because their identity in terms of land ownership is there. So that will not be a big challenge, and I'm sure they will be covered in the times to come. And then there are initiatives like RBI, you must have heard about PTPFC. So that is going to be, making credit flow availability in a very seamless manner going forward. Now the real challenge is that 6 crore, those who are left out, neither they have, after that 6, if you leave aside 1.25, then around 4.5 crore. So for them, it's the biggest challenge is that. And we had a study recently which states that why the farmers are not able to take institutional credit. 53% of them said, I'm not able to complete the paperwork. So that means, and in that paperwork, mostly it's related to land ownership. And within that 5, around 2, this is a rough estimate, no definite figure, but around 2.5 are farmers, those who are tenant farmers or the sharecroppers. So that's the major area where we need to actually do something and work something. That is where we will be able to cover most. And that is where I think your data part, the DPIs and all other fintech companies, whatever way the data is being generated, how we can make use of that data to include that for 4.5 crore farmers. So that's the main thing. And within that, how to capture, where we can capture this data is maybe whether the data related to entire input transaction by the cultivator, whether he's a landowner or not. But if he's doing farming, he must be purchasing the inputs. So how do you capture that transactional data? So maybe a fertilizer company or seed company, or maybe some farm services he has taken, or some other, whatever way that transaction, if it is happening digitally, whether it can be captured and whether the banks are comfortable to finance on that basis. So that is one. And secondly, the output data. Output transaction, if he's selling to maybe a mandi or a APMC or maybe to an e-commerce platform, anywhere. So how to capture that data and whether that data can be integrated seamlessly with the banking system, with the LOS, or maybe with the government's portals, which incentivizes the farmers. So whether both the data for input and output, whether both these data can be integrated, and whether that can be considered for including them for farm loans. So that is one area we are working on. In fact, there are some initiatives being taken through RBI with SBI, how we can purpose bind the CBDC for these purposes. So initiatives are being taken, but that is one area, broad area where we need to actually work on that. How do you cover those 4.5 crore farmers, those who are not able to complete their official identity in terms of land ownership? So that is one major area that we have to work on.
No, thank you, Mr. Rawat. I think it's a very, very holistic picture. It clarifies a lot of things for us and the audience. So thank you very much for starting comments. With that, I'll go to Mr. Pendsey from SBI, banker to every Indian, as we call them. And of course, probably one of the largest portfolio in agriculture among all banks. Sir, my question to you, how does SBI see role of digital technologies, digital financing when it comes to agriculture? And what kind of innovations, sir talked about CBDC, you told that you have done some experiments already. What kind of new financial innovations which can happen riding on some of the data stacks and digitization that we are seeing in the sector?
Yeah, thank you. Good afternoon to you, all of you. In fact, there is no dearth of data. Data is practically overflowing, is it not? I mean, you just turn every single source is overflowing with data. How do we use it is the key challenge. And how do we interweave that so that a meaningful work can be done throughout the country? Now, as rightly said by you, today we have a crop identity, the land identity, and the farmer identity. These are very, very vital data points which the AgriTech is going to come up with, or already the work is going on. Maybe couple of years before it actually starts fructifying for the country. But you just imagine what it implies for the bank, for the government, or for the private players is that once the stack is fully ready and alive, it's a potent data source which gives me information on what crop is growing in which area, which district, how much it is growing. I also know that how the trends in farming in reality, I mean, we are used to paper data sources like whatever statistical data, and the reality, at times there is a gap. But with these digital data, which is there, maybe it should come in a couple of years or couple of quarters. I'm not too sure, and neither I'm an authority to speak on it. But once it comes, you are aware about what Andhra is doing or what MP is doing, how the crops are growing. Secondly, any early warning signals are there. We can also give lot of advisories to farmers. Today we are just giving loans as banks. Yeah. But that's only one way of doing it, or only one input. But when it comes to say SSI or any SME, we go there, we inspect it every 15 days or every month or every 2 months, give advisory to the borrowers or the proprietors or partners or whatever it is. But as far as farmers are concerned, there are large numbers, and practically it is not possible to go to the farm every month. It may be in the books, but it's not possible. But with the digital goods or DPI, I can actually see the way farms are growing, and lot of advisories can be given by the government departments, the banks also, perhaps to some extent. And of course, fintechs, even what kind of pests are onset, what kind of pesticides to be used or not to be used, if early harvesting is to be done for salvaging some part of the field. I have seen one of the, fintech presentation where in the bigger field, the farmer, once the crop grows very high, 6 feet, the farmer cannot enter. But digitally I can see that at the center of this farm, whether the pest is onset. So we can actually cut away, just like the wildfires are caught in the jungles. So what they do is that they cut in between so that the fire cannot cross. Even in farms that is possible, in the bigger farms. Similarly, taking policy decisions, taking decisions of which crop to actually produce or not to produce. I mean, endless possibilities based on the data. And we are at the cusp of disruption as far as agriculture is concerned. I mean, the anchor said, I do not know where she is. She said, agriculture. I think even if you forget agriculture, 3 times in a day, we definitely remember agriculture. I hope you are getting me. 3 times in a day, we definitely remember the farmer who is actually toiling very hard. Data will make the life of the farmer also very, very easy. And he also or she also can take data-driven decisions. The banks are taking data-driven decisions today. As far as the CBDC experiment, which we did, let me share that NABARD and SBI together. We did a pilot in 2 states. As rightly said by DMD NABARD, is that there is a class of farmers who do not have the land holding certificates. These are sharecroppers or tenant croppers. So how do we deal with them? They are real, and they are a bigger class of farmers which are there. And a formal lending has to support them if the cost of capital has to come down for them or cost of lending. So what we together did, NABARD and SBI, is we piloted some of the geographies in Odisha and Andhra, where to the tenant farmers, there is a programmable CBDC where we can actually geofence the input purchase in certain districts or certain area. So we restricted 30% of the total KCC as programmable CBDC. It was successfully rolled out couple of weeks, rather 10 or 15 days back. I don't remember the date. So endless possibilities of data, sir. Thank you. I mean, we can go on and go on and speak.
Right. No, absolutely. Possibilities are endless. It's good you talked about advisory. I think that's one of the key farmer needs. You know, I guess most of us check a WhatsApp in the morning. Any guesses what farmer checks in the morning? The first thing in the morning? Weather. It's so crucial to his livelihood. The first thing the farmer checks in the morning is weather. And I think the beauty of AgriData stack is real-time weather from the closest weather station can go to the farmer in real time. He can take a lot of steps to prevent any crop loss and do lots of things. And of course, multiple advisories around pricing and where to sell, what to buy, etc., etc. So multiple use cases apart from lending. Maybe I can go to Krishnan because I think Telangana is at the forefront of building AgriData exchange. I think a lot of us have heard about it. Can you share some of the experiences with ADEX that Telangana built? And also, if you can also talk about how does private sector participate, because most of this is government-driven initiatives. And I think Vishal can endorse that, private sector startups are hungry for this data, if I can call it that way. So, how do you open it up? How do you involve private sector? How do you build multiple use cases?
Yeah. Good afternoon, all of you. Before I start to narrate about our experience, I just would like to share a small anecdote, which I remember one of my teachers told in my school days. A honorable chief minister from one of the states was called to attend a ceremony in a missionary school. They had opened a matriculation system of examination. This was somewhere in the early days after the independence. So the chief minister during the function probably commented, after much consultation and deep consideration, I have come to a conclusion that the matriculation examination is a great botheration to the Indian nation whose major occupation is cultivation. So I think that laid the emphasis for the importance of agriculture in our economy. I think it still holds true, given by the numbers stated by Shri Rawat ji from NABARD. The number of farmer households present in our country gives a big importance to the need for agriculture in our economy. So with this idea in mind, because a lot of services are required to farmers, Telangana has about 55 to 60 lakh farmer households. So, and who all avail services of soil health cards, fertilizers, paddy procurement services, so on and so forth. So we thought there is a need for an effective and efficient service delivery that has to be provided to this sector. So with this thought in mind, we started the Agricultural Data Exchange, which is essentially an agri stack for the state of Telangana, where we will be onboarding all the agricultural and related data sets specific to Telangana onto our platform. This was the first point. Secondly, we also thought, the data, for example, agriculture data, I think my co-panel speakers will also agree. When I say within the government, the data is highly skewed, though a lot of data is available, as rightly pointed out by my colleague from SBI. We have, say, for example, agriculture department will have the crop related data, which crop a farmer is sowing, which is the season that he is sowing, what is the source of irrigation, so on and so forth. But they do not have the land record details of the farmers. For that, you have to go to the revenue or the land administration department. Then related to the productivity related information, say, for example, the crop cutting experiments data and all, that will lie with the Department of Economics and Statistics under the planning department. So within the government, for a particular domain of agriculture, the data is highly diversified. So for a AgriTech ecosystem to access all this data, it will be a cumbersome process and it would not be also be a viable proposition. So government of Telangana thought it is an important activity to be taken up. So we started this agricultural data exchange with this motive in mind. I think I will stop here and I will continue after for the next question.
No, thanks very much, and clearly thanks for setting a template for other states also to follow. I think Telangana has done a great job. With that, I'll come to Vishal, founder of Advarisk. As I said, agriculture is witnessing unprecedented digitization. I can tell you at the core of it are like these 5,000 startups who, from out of nowhere, decided to build their model in agriculture sector. And I must say, we are blessed as a country to have these innovators who thought agriculture could be a model where could be a sector where they build scalable models solving for multiple farmer challenges. So, Vishal, over to you. You built some interesting models, especially around financing. You're using a lot of data, which is with the state governments. So give us some idea about what you do and what kind of products you see are possible with these kind of digital tools available.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, everyone. So fundamentally, what Advarisk does is we have created India's first real-time collateral management platform. That's in short. I'll try and address what is it that we are trying to do and what kind of impact we are trying to bring in. So if I'm sure the entire panel would agree, the fundamental problem which every financial institution is trying to solve is reduce the cost and the risk associated to the lending and also improve the overall experience of the farmers. As Rawat sir rightly highlighted, one of the biggest gap which we also saw in the ecosystem was around the land ownership records itself. Every state has its own unique formats. Every state has its own terminology. Every state will have its own state-specific language. They will have a separate measurement unit criteria. Now, in this kind of structure, right, and if we talk about the current state of data sitting on the various government websites, these are all either scanned copies or PDFs which they would have generated and different formats. So it becomes very difficult to automate the journey altogether. Banks have to rely either on the data which is sitting there, so manually get that data and someone to read it who understands that language, right? So what Advarisk did is Advarisk created a one single API for the entire country. We have made property databases available, accessible, and usable for the financial institutions. Now using this data, right, when I say available, we have sourced more than 350 different portals in a single data lake. We have made it accessible by providing API and platform to the financial institutions. And we have also made it usable. From that I mean we have converted everything into English, everything standardized into a single binary terminology, single measurement unit, etc. And this financial institutions are able to consume with just single API. 2 input criteria and a standard format of output, which helps them sanction those loans more efficiently, effectively, and continuously monitor these accounts as well, sir, on an ongoing basis, so that they can keep a track on the overall portfolio and also reduce their risk associated to it, and fundamentally improve the overall financial access to the society, particularly in the rural, is what we are trying to solve as a company. Yeah.
No, that's fantastic. I think it's a very, very important initiative. I think another one I can think of, I think since Hiren, another panelist, he was supposed to be on this panel, but he had to rush to catch his flight. So it's one of the founders of SatSure, and what they've done is build a credit score for the farm, capturing about 20 odd variables, mostly from remote sensing. And like each one of us have CIBIL score, a farm also has a credit score. And for bankers, they get a farmer credit score, the farm credit score, and with that, their underwriting becomes far more improved. And important thing, unlike many other assets, crops, are subject to climate risk. There could be rain, there could be extreme weather. So this monitoring of asset is also critical. So thankfully, we are seeing a lot of application of remote sensing now from sowing to harvest, and bankers can actually see where's the stress, when is the harvest, when the recovery can happen, and things like that. So it's very interesting how space tech, AgriTech, Fintech is kind of converging to build some very interesting solutions solving for farmer challenges. So with that, probably I'll go back to Mr. Rawat again. Mr. Rawat, of course, we heard the immense possibilities with these techs and digitization can throw us in the future. The question is, how do we come together as an ecosystem? NABARD being the apex institution in agriculture, SBI the largest banker, we have the government someone representing the government, and we have a startup. How do we work together to take these innovations to scale? like I'll tell you from startup, they are always concerned, we have a great fintech model, but banks are not supporting. They are asking for FLDG and stuff like that. This is a usual complaint. I know banks have a reason to do it. They are bound by RBI regulations. But how do we catalyze these innovation? How do we scale it? What is the role of policy and institutions like NABARD?
This is definitely a challenge. It's a challenge. We have to accept that. We were discussing earlier that government has a now overall visibility of what they want to do around it. That's why this AgriStack concept has come up. And once that basic layer of AgriStack comes in, where we are able to identify the farmer, and the farming, all these three things, that is the basic requirement right now. And on top of that, there are other initiatives from the government side itself, where they are trying to build in other information related to agriculture, all other information. For example, the advisory. So there is a initiative at the Government of India level related to Raftar. So they are trying to bring in all advisory related, where they are trying to bring in ICRs and all the research institutions, which should be propagating the entire advisory system into the system. From our side, some of our colleagues are here. He mentioned about different states, different languages, different things. So for banking system, we have a scale of finance on the basis of which the finance happens for the crop loaning. So we have streamlined that entire thing, that it will be one document only across the country by whatever name, whatever crop name it is given. This is one data point that we have shared with them. So similarly, different schemes of different states, different governments, the soil data, yield data, all these data they want to populate at one place. And ultimately it will link with the AgriStack also. And if that happens, then on top of that, then others can plug and play. So that is one way, what the government is looking at in the broader perspective. So once it stabilizes, it may take some time, but the government, I think, has a clearer view on what they want to do in the long term. And that's why, but the only thing is, actually, different departments of government have to talk to each other and see what they are broadly doing at the national level, bring on all the state governments. And I think once that platform is stabilized, developed well, then the other players can come on board. The Fintechs, AgriTechs, and the banks, everybody can come on. And then from the regulatory aspects, if there are some compliances issues, regulatory issues, they can also come on board. And once it is stabilized, then maybe this will be a possibility.
Absolutely. And yeah, I think we must realize AgriTech is probably one of the few stack where the state governments have to take the lead, right? Unlike UPI, etc., or other stacks where it's largely driven by central government. So, and thankfully there is some healthy competition among states now. So that much I can tell. Hopefully we'll see a lot of these states implementing the AgriTech very soon. Shantanu ji, aapke liye question is, I'm sure you must have worked with a lot of AgriTechs, Fintech, building some interesting solutions. How do banks and startups, come together? Of course, all startups want SBI to work with them. I know you have sort of limitations, but how do we catalyze, not just SBI, I think all banks, public sector, private sector, I think a lot of cooperative banks are sitting in the room, RRBs. How do you make it more inclusive for banks and startups to work together?
Yeah, that is one of the key questions actually we should solve together, perhaps. Yeah. This is because we've got 5,000 agri startups as of now, maybe more. Now, everyone has a solution, and everyone has a solution which can be implemented, which cannot be implemented. If the bank has to integrate with a agri startup, all the banks and the bigger banks will always have certain guidelines of onboarding, including the CVC guidelines, which we have to follow. And if you're looking at a real, impact of all this data and a real impact in the farmers' lives, then we have to go with the bigger banks, not with the very small banks. And that is where the two bigger platforms which are there in this country, one, the Governor RBI, he said ULI, Unified Lending Interface. And there is one more platform called Jan Samarth. Both these platforms are, there are at least 13 or 14 schemes which are already on Jan Samarth for almost last 3 years. And RBI Innovation Hubs platform is also live for almost one year or so. And most of the banks are connected to both the platforms. So I see the future very great because these two platforms basically will stitch together these agri stacks with the platform, and the banks will plug into those platforms. So it's a RBI-led, RBIH platform where the agri startups and the other startups also, it's not only agri startups, will plug into on one side, and the other side the banks. So ultimately the farmer or the customer whose interest is getting served will be served very efficiently, digitally, with convenience and low cost. Now, as far as agri startups are concerned, we work with lot many startups, but the thing is, everybody has got certain geographies under their, their area of operation. Now, as State Bank of India, I have a balance sheet of, as of now, more than 3 trillion rupees. So I cannot work with very, very small startups and get along with them because everyone has got a set of 5,000 farmers or 10,000 farmers. But how do we get into, because I have 72 lakh farmers only with KCC and 2.5 crore farmers on my roll. So to connect with very small ecosystems is a challenge. Second is the information security standards of every agri startup will be different than what perhaps SBI has got or HDFC has got or ICICI have. The bigger banks will always have a challenge of connecting to the agri startups where the information security standards are comparatively lower. And that is one of the challenges which we face in connecting to the agri startups. Secondly, the policies for the bigger banks may not allow just to nominate or do this on nomination basis. So SBI has now a formal policy of onboarding fintechs, not only in agri space, where we onboard them for service. And that is why we have, for last 6-8 months we have been doing. So Advarisk also is one of our partners, but we work through, PSB Alliances is one of the entities through which actually we get into such. So the challenge is to how to stitch these agri startups with their solutions and multiple solutions. But let me tell you, once the agri stack comes, it's the master stroke actually. It may actually create disruption for many startups as we move ahead because the solutions will be pre-built. And if you are aware about the Kisan Run portal, government has a big picture to see. They are already on, with something very, very big, transforming, and we are going to see, maybe wait for 12 months more, not more than that. Thank you.
Well, thanks very much. I think we have 2.5 minutes left, and I just want to have one question each for Krishnan and Vishal. Krishnan, I think, of course, every state is building the stack. But in terms of open sourcing, especially for startups or fintechs or agri-techs who want to use this data, what is the thinking right now? How do we make it democratized to large number of people instead of not having a good policy on data sharing?
Absolutely. It must be open, it must be democratic, no doubts on that. Otherwise, we will not be able to reach the target that we have set for ourselves. Governments have to be flexible. They should be open. Of course, rules and functionality matters, but at the same time, we need solutions. So we have to be flexible, test, do a POC, try to arrive at a solution, and then scale up. So you have to follow the process, but at the same time have also the targets necessary for achieving the service requirements. And I think, there is a lot of, you are going to service nearly 14 crore or more households, 14 crore farmers plus into 3 or 4 number of population. So that is going to be a very large sector of population. So that is very important. And ADEX, especially the Agriculture Data Exchange of Telangana, has built the data stack as open as possible. We follow the open data protocols. Any startup, we do not store data for that matter. I also want to tell up that I also take this opportunity to inform all the participants here that we follow an open data policy. Agricultural startups can come and reach out to us. They can work with us. We do not store any data. The data remains with the data fiduciary. All the data flows to the consumers through APIs. There are certain processes that we have set to ensure data exchange. So following those methods, we are very much open and welcome to experiment and to work out solutions with all kinds of startups across sectors of agriculture.
Great. No, that's very good to hear. Very encouraging. So Vishal, like Shantanu ji had a piece of advice for startup, which is very important. Do you have any ask from the banks sitting in the room?
I just want to come in, as Rawat ji said, not 30 seconds, is that the thing is, for whom we are doing, we have to educate farmers also to avail this. It's because we are live in Jansamarth platform, digital KCC, for almost 6-7 months. But the numbers should pick up. I mean, we are live, the digital KCC is there for the farmer to take, and the disbursement happens maybe in 4 minutes time. I mean, end to end.
4 minutes?
4 minutes.
Wow.
I'm saying from application to disbursement takes less than 4 minutes.
Wow.
But the farmers also need to be educated for availing this. So the problem is multi-pronged. Yes, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think Vishal can educate some farmers for sure. Yeah.
Sure, sir. So, fundamentally, sir, I think there are two things which a startup wants in its DNA, right? And looks at a support from the ecosystem as well. One, definitely innovation, right? Particularly when you're doing B2B, innovation primarily comes from the guidance and support of the customers. We have built multiple products in the past wherein we have worked very closely with a lot of financial institutions, and they are the ones who taught us what are the problem statements, what are the various solutions. What we did is we just solved it in a better way, by taking their guidance itself. So this is something which all startups need today. I think is available through the private ecosystem. And second, yes, is scale. That comes from State Bank of India. So obviously, I think SBI has already taken a lot of steps, initiatives to onboard fintechs directly on their panel. Also give contracts to those fintechs which are in panel with them, give them more opportunity. I think as and when the overall limits increases, right? Like in state government of Rajasthan, earlier they had a limit of giving a straight contract of 25 lakhs to any startup, which is part of their state policy. Similarly, maybe SBI can also look at it. They've increased that to 5 crore recently. Okay. So maybe State Bank of India can also look at similar things, which will encourage startups a lot and will help them scale as well. Yeah.
Very good. Oh, excellent. I wish if we had more time, but I know we are running behind schedule, but very, very insightful and open discussion. And thanks to all the panelists, Mr. Rawat, Shantanu ji, Krishnan and Vishal. A big round of applause for them. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to each and every one of you for being a part of Global Fintech Fest 2024. I would request Shri Manikumar, CGM from NABARD, to kindly come forward. We have a token of appreciation for all of our speakers. And meanwhile, I would also request all of our speakers to kindly come forward for a group photo. Taking this opportunity to thank our gracious sponsors, Fintech Breakthrough Partner Paytm, Diamond Partner PayU, Beer Booth Partner Cred, Gold Partner Appreciate Wealth and Grameen Foundation, Silver Partner Finerkeen and True Balance, Spend Management Partner Zaggle.
So the memento is actually a handcrafted GI product, Kulabi Meenakari of Banaras, is supported by NABARD. So this is our testimony of supporting the rural entrepreneurs and rural artisans. Thank you.
A huge round of applause for such a thoughtful memento. Once again, a huge round of applause for all of our panelists. Thank you so much to each and every one of you. As we